The sun blazed, painting the African savanna in hues of gold and ochre. The vast expanse shimmered, a sea of grass and acacia trees stretching as far as the eye could see. Birdsong filled the warm breeze, a melody carried on the wind. This was the backdrop to the Nkrumah estate, a sprawling testament to wealth and power. The mansion, a vision in white stone, sat atop a gentle rise, offering panoramic views of the surrounding plains. Here, the Nkrumah family reigned, their influence touching every corner of the savannah. The Nkrumah family's roots ran deep, intertwined with the very history of the land. Their story was one of ambition and success, rising from humble beginnings to become titans of industry. They were the driving force behind schools and hospitals, patrons of art and culture. Their patriarch, Baba Nkrumah, was a legend, a man of vision and determination. His legacy lived on in his children and grandchildren, a dynasty destined for greatness. They were the embodiment of the African dream, a source of pride for the entire community, yet beneath the surface of their gilded world, shadows lurked. The air held a tension, a subtle unease that whispered of change. The younger generation grappled with their own ambitions and desires, yearning for more than preordained paths. Among them was Zuri, the youngest daughter of the Nkrumah family.
I possess a sharp intellect and a compassionate heart, deeply involved in the family business. But my true passion lies elsewhere. I long to make a difference, to leave my mark on the world.
Little did she know that fate had a plan of its own, one that would test her loyalty and challenge her beliefs. The annual Nkrumah Foundation Gala was a spectacle of wealth and glamour. Beneath the glittering chandeliers, Zuri felt a familiar pang of restlessness.
That evening, however, the monotony was broken by a new face.
Kwame, a young environmental activist, spoke about his work in wildlife conservation. The interconnectedness of life on the savannah is delicate, and it's being threatened. We must act now to preserve this balance. His words resonated with Zuri, igniting something within her. In that moment, their eyes met across the crowded room, a spark of recognition passing between them. Following that night, Zuri found herself seeking out Kwame. They began meeting in secret, stealing moments amidst their hectic schedules.
Our conversations were filled with a shared passion for justice and a deep love for our homeland.
Zuri, you have dreams, desires to forge your own path, don't let anything hold you back. With Kwame, she could be herself, unguarded and free. Their love blossomed amidst the sprawling acacia trees, but their secret was a dangerous one, a flame that could easily be extinguished by the harsh realities of their circumstances. Kwame's world was a stark contrast to Zuri's, dedicated to protecting the vulnerable. Every day I see the impact of greed. People suffer while a few grow richer. Zuri, shielded from such harsh realities, began to realize her family's wealth cast a long shadow.
My love for Kwame opened my eyes to a world where the lines between right and wrong were often blurred by power and influence.
The weight of her family's legacy pressed down on Zuri, torn between her love for Kwame and her loyalty to her family. Could she reconcile these two opposing forces, or would she be forced to choose? As Zuri and Kwame grew closer, a sense of unease began to creep into Zuri's heart. She found herself questioning the source of her family's wealth.
I began to notice things I hadn't before. Evasive answers from my father, hushed phone calls, the constant presence of men in expensive suits.
The more she observed, the more the seeds of doubt took root in her mind. One evening, while searching for her father, Zuri stumbled upon a file. It contained documents that hinted at shady business dealings, illegal activities that struck at the very heart of what Kwame was fighting against. The world as she knew it began to crumble. The truth hit Zuri like a bolt of lightning. The documents revealed her father's involvement in a network of illegal wildlife trafficking.
Her family, the ones who had taught her the importance of legacy and integrity, were complicit in the very activities that threatened the future of the land they claimed to love.
The realization left her reeling, her heart heavy with a mix of anger, disappointment, and betrayal. Zuri knew she couldn't ignore what she had discovered, but exposing the truth would have devastating consequences, shattering her family's carefully constructed facade. It would potentially destroy everything they had built. The grand dining hall of the Nkrumah mansion buzzed with anticipation. Zuri sat beside her mother, her heart a trapped bird fluttering against her ribs. Her father, a statue of authority at the head of the table, cleared his throat. "My dear daughter, you know Kofi, son of the esteemed Abiola family." Zuri's stomach churned. Kofi, a handsome man, always impeccably dressed, with a smile that never reached his eyes. Kofi, seated across from her, inclined his head, a practiced gesture, polite and distant. "Your father and I believe it is time we united our families, a strategic alliance beneficial for both our futures." The name echoed in her ears like a death knell. Zuri looked at her mother, pleading silently for an ounce of understanding.
Kofi is a good man, Zuri, her mother said later that night. He will provide for you. He will uphold the Nkrumah name.
Zuri wanted to scream, to tell her that her happiness couldn't be measured in acres of land or the size of a bank account. But the weight of tradition, the expectations of her lineage, pressed down on her. For generations, Nkrumah daughters were groomed for alliances, their lives intricately woven into the fabric of duty and legacy. To defy this was to risk unraveling the very threads that held their world together. Her heart beat to a different rhythm, a rhythm that echoed the whispers of the wind and the passionate fire in Kwame's eyes. Hope came unexpectedly, a fragile seedling pushing through the cracks of her despair. "We'll find a way. Your happiness, our love, it's worth fighting for." Kwame, his eyes blazing with a fierce tenderness, held her close.
For the first time, I dared to imagine a life beyond the gilded cage of my family's expectations.
But a shadow of doubt lingered. Could their love truly survive the storm that was brewing? The knowledge of her father's corruption gnawed at her conscience, casting a dark cloud over her impending marriage. How could she, in good conscience, marry into a family potentially complicit in the very acts that threatened the land she loved? The engagement party was a grand affair, a dizzying spectacle of opulence and celebration.
Every congratulatory hug, every well-wishing word, felt like a betrayal of my own heart.
Zuri, trapped in a shimmering gown that felt more like a cage than clothing, moved through the crowd with a smile plastered on her face. Beside her, Kofi played the part of the attentive fiancé to perfection. His hand rested possessively on her waist, his smile charming and insincere.
I saw the calculating glint in his eyes, the ambition that mirrored my father's. It chilled me to my core.
Later that night, as the party wound down, Zuri found herself drawn to the balcony overlooking the savannah.
This is my sanctuary, the wild heart of the land that calls to my soul.
She closed her eyes, drawing in a deep breath. The rhythmic chirping of crickets, the distant howl of a lone jackal grounded her. A soft rustle behind her made her turn. "I won't let them take you from me." Kwame stood a few feet away, his silhouette framed by the moonlight, his eyes filled with a mixture of love and sorrow.
My heart pounded a frantic rhythm against my ribs. The weight of the evidence, tucked away in a hidden pocket of my purse, felt heavy as lead.
She met Kwame's gaze across the crowded courtyard, their silent exchange a whirlwind of fear and determination. Leveraging my network of contacts, I unearthed a trail of shell companies and forged documents. Zuri, torn between her burgeoning love and familial loyalty, walked a tightrope. She was the key, their only hope of exposing the insidious network poisoning the heart of their beloved Savannah. But every step closer to the truth felt like a betrayal, a chipping away at the foundation of everything she held dear. The air grew thick with suspicion. Zuri noticed her father's gaze lingering on her, his eyes narrowed with a hint of something cold and calculating.
I became adept at playing a double game. During the day, I was the dutiful daughter, attending to my engagement with a facade of fragile grace.
But at night, fueled by a burning sense of purpose and Kwame's unwavering support, she delved deeper into the labyrinthine world of her fiancé's dealings. The closer they got, the more apparent it became that Kofi's reach extended far beyond illegal poaching. He was a puppet master, his strings tangled in political corruption and a network of greed that threatened to consume everything in its path. The walls of her own home seemed to close in, suffocating her with their gilded cages. The tension finally snapped at a lavish fundraising gala hosted by the Nkrumah Foundation.
His words dripped with honeyed deceit, each syllable a slap in the face of the truth.
It was then, as she watched him bask in the adoration of the oblivious crowd, that she saw the mask slip. For a fleeting moment, a flash of something dark and predatory flickered in his eyes. It was the confirmation she needed, a chilling reminder that beneath his polished exterior lurked a predator far more dangerous than she could have ever imagined. The sight ignited a fire within her, a fierce determination to rip away the facade and expose him for the fraud he truly was. The confrontation came like a thunderstorm, sudden and violent.
Father, I have irrefutable evidence. Kofi's crimes have devastated us. He's poisoned our family to its very core.
Her voice trembled with a mixture of anger and heartbreak as she laid bare the truth.
You can't deny this anymore. Look at the consequences of his actions.
Her words were met with a wall of denial, a desperate attempt to cling to the illusion of their carefully constructed reality.
Zuri, these are the ramblings of a naive girl blinded by love. Think of our family's reputation, our legacy.
But Zuri refused to be silenced. The weight of her love for Kwame, for her land, for the truth fueled her defiance. The confrontation left the family fractured, a chasm of distrust and betrayal splitting them down the middle. The fallout was swift and brutal. Zuri's accusations sent shockwaves through the community.
The Nkrumah name, once synonymous with prosperity, is now tainted with scandal.
Her father, his empire crumbling, blamed Zuri for their downfall.
This is your doing, Zuri. Look at what you've done to us.
She was ostracized from her family, her name whispered with disdain. The life she had known vanished like smoke on the wind. Zuri, I'm here, we'll face this together. Amidst the storm, Kwame remained her anchor. They were prepared to fight, to pay the price for truth. The Savannah, our witness and our strength, reminds us that hope can still bloom. The scandal, like a wildfire fueled by the winds of truth, spread beyond the manicured lawns of the Nkrumah estate. It leaped into the bustling city, igniting conversations in crowded marketplaces and echoing through the corridors of power.
What began as whispers in the shadows has grown into a chorus of outrage.
The people whose lives had been touched by the Nkrumah legacy felt betrayed. The schools and hospitals, once symbols of progress, now stood as grim reminders of their shattered trust. The name, once revered, became synonymous with deceit and corruption.
I see the anger and disappointment, but also a burgeoning sense of hope.
Zuri, ostracized from her family, found solace in the heart of the city. She witnessed firsthand the anger and disappointment, but also a burgeoning sense of hope. The people, inspired by her courage, were finding their voice. Whispers to a roar. My friends, we must remember the power of our collective voice. We have the right to hold those in power accountable. Kwame, a natural leader, galvanized the community. He organized protests, his words resonating with the anger and frustration simmering beneath the surface. We will not be silenced, our voices will be heard. What had begun as whispers of dissent grew into a roar that echoed through the streets. Students marched, their voices ringing out with chants of justice and change. Market women refused to sell their goods to those complicit in the scandal. The city, once complacent, was awakening.
Standing beside Kwame, I feel a surge of pride and purpose. The fear that had gripped my heart is dissipating, replaced by a steely determination.
Zuri had lost her family, her position, her old life, but in its place, she had found something far more valuable, her voice. The walls crumble. The walls of power built on a foundation of deceit and corruption began to crumble. The evidence, meticulously gathered by Zuri and Kwame, was handed over to the authorities. Investigations were launched, politicians implicated, and the true cost of greed laid bare for all to see. We did it, Zuri, the truth is finally coming to light. Kofi, his carefully crafted facade shattered, was arrested. His empire, built on lies and exploitation, crumbled around him. Zuri's father, his health failing and his spirit broken, faced the consequences of his actions.
The city is watching, transfixed as the mighty fall. The air is thick with anticipation, crackling with a mixture of anger, relief, and a cautious sense of hope.
A new chapter was being written, one where truth and justice prevailed. Through it all, Kwame remained Zuri's constant. His love, unwavering and true, was her anchor in the storm. I celebrated her strength, comforted her in her moments of doubt, and reminded her of the good we were fighting for. They stood together, hand in hand, facing the future with courage and hope. They had lost much, but they had gained so much more. They had found their purpose, their voice, and a love that had weathered the storm. The Savannah, their silent witness, seemed to hum with a renewed energy. The animals, no longer hunted and exploited, roamed freely. The land, healed by the rains of justice, thrived. The scandal, a catalyst for change, left an indelible mark on the city. New laws were passed, regulations enforced, and a collective commitment to protect their land and its wildlife took root.
I found my own path. I established a foundation dedicated to environmental conservation. My work fueled by my love for the Savannah and my commitment to social justice.
She traveled across the land, sharing her story, inspiring others to stand up for what they believed in. The young woman who had once felt lost and alone had found her place in the world, her voice a beacon of hope and inspiration. As the sun rose each morning, painting the Savannah in hues of gold and ochre, it signaled a new dawn. A dawn where truth prevailed, where courage was rewarded, and where love, like the resilient spirit of the land, had the power to heal and transform. Scars, both physical and emotional, crisscrossed Zuri's heart, each one a reminder of the battle fought, the sacrifices made, the love lost and found. The grand Nkrumah estate, once her gilded cage, now stood as a hollow monument.
Yet, with each sunrise painting the Savannah in breathtaking hues, I felt the tendrils of bitterness loosen their grip.
The land, her constant companion, had witnessed her journey. It held the echoes of her laughter, absorbed her tears, and cradled her dreams for a brighter future. Zuri discovered the true meaning of legacy. It wasn't in wealth or influence, it lay in her actions, the love she poured into healing a land and its people.
Kwame, my rock, walked beside me, our love a testament to the human spirit.
Together, they faced storms, emerging stronger, their bond forged in adversity. Their love story transcended tradition, a legacy written on the heart of the land. A love story whispered on the wind, carried on the wings of eagles.